I'm leader of Bracknell Forest and also I chair the Environment Board at the Local Government Association. It's a great pleasure to have been invited to come to Southampton today to take part in this event as chairman of the first plenary. It's a subject that has become very close to my heart, the idea of local energy making its impact felt in the fight against climate change. We have probably only recently, as a nation, been exposed to the cost in energy terms of transporting energy around the country. You know, we've been, no doubt, those of us that have ever thought about it have always been very pleased that energy in this country is available almost anywhere, seemingly at any time. You simply just figuratively turn on a tap and there is the energy. But of course, it's travelled very often considerable distance to get to the point of use. And what we began to learn a few years ago in a slightly different service, that of water, is that not all of it gets where you send it. Some of it gets lost en route. In water, of course, it simply oozes from the pipes and disappears back into the land from whence it came. With energy, it dissipates very often in the form of heat, and essentially nowhere near as much as has been made actually ends up getting used, which means that we have to make far more than we use. And we all know that these days we're becoming very conscious of the amount of energy that we consume and therefore the amount that we have to actually manufacture in the first place. So the idea of creating that energy, making it usable and putting it into its usable form more locally to the place where it will be used suddenly has risen up the agenda at great speed. And how the agenda has changed over recent years and months is really quite startling. Climate change itself is undoubtedly, at the forefront of many people's minds now. And whilst for some the debate still rages as to whether or not it's happening, because I guess the Flat Earth Society lives on and will always find something new to disbelieve until the day when it hits them, I for one am convinced that the fact that every morning now when we turn on our TVs or read our daily newspapers, we seem to read or see news of some weather event somewhere in the world. And I don't believe that's because of a dramatic increase in our ability to report these facts. What it is these facts are becoming more commonplace. So we need to do something. I think probably those of us in the room today all agree that we need to do something. Sadly, at these events, there's always just a tad of preaching to the converted. But the important thing that we all share is that not only are we interested in the problem, but we're actually potentially part of the solution to that problem. Each one of us can do something. And in terms of doing something, just a thought before I introduce you to colleagues who are going to come up with the meat of the session. Just a small thought. In terms of change, of course, what we're saying to people is that with our coping with climate change, both mitigating it, trying to prevent it from happening any further in the future, and also, of course, as local authorities, that very important role adapting to it, because it's our services that are in the front line of coping with climate change. In terms of dealing with climate change, it's a question of each one of us as residents of this planet, and certainly looking today just at this country, to change what we do in some small ways. And of course, how do we get everyone to do that? Well, we are talking here as organisations that together employ over 2 million people. So if we could start with our own staff and then ask them to cascade that slight change to their friends and their families, just think how quickly we could actually cascade that throughout the whole country. And I believe that very often we forget what a potent force we are, thanks to our own internal network created by the staff that we employ, over 2 million of them. Just an initial thought. I'm sure that with the lineup of speakers that we have here today, those thoughts will be added to, and hopefully by the time we all depart at the end of the event, we'll go